YouTube, my name is Elizabeth. Welcome or welcome back to my channel, Book as in Books. You probably know, if you've looked at the calendar, we are in August. That is assuming you're watching the video not very long after it has been released. I'm filming this in August and I'm posting this in August in a few hours in all likelihood. And that means that this is Garbaugust. Garbaugust is a brainchild of Ollie from Criminale, and it is a readathon where we are invited to read garbage, trashy books, books that are not particularly complex, books that are simply meant to entertain us, the most ultra-commercial books you can think of. The editors are making money, the publishers, I should say, they are making money, the authors are making money, and nobody is pretending that they are making art. So we don't read these books for the poetry of the language, we don't read these books for the accuracy of the information in it, we don't read these books because we think we're going to find the meaning of life in it. We read these books because they're fun. And for me, my garbage of choice is romance. Now there's a question, is all romance garbage? I think the question is valid, but I think the answer is rather simple, because we consider category romance as garbage. For the purpose of the readathon, it is said with a lot of love, no judgment there. And I don't think there should be a difference between a category romance or a Harlequin that has a serial number on it, though it's not written directly, and that is released at a specific date, like December 19, July 18, well, July 18, December 2019 and July 2018. Is it really less garbage than, let's say, this, which is not a Harlequin, but it is a romance? How about this? Anything published by Avon Books. Why should it be less garbage than these because they are longer? Length is not a criteria for garbage. That could be very, very long books that are garbage. So the only difference that I really can think of is the fact that these come on a schedule and these ones don't. Not that we know of. There probably is one. I'm sure the publisher has a schedule, but we just don't know the schedules. And these, we know the schedule. It's it. It's it. Because both of them, all romance have a formula. They all have it. So what's the difference? What's the difference? I say there's no difference. So I'm using this video as an excuse to talk about all the romance that I read this year. So it's all garbage to me. Said with a lot of love, once again. Well, it's romance. Of course there's a lot of love. So, what did I read? I started to go to my own books. So I first read Michelle Stahl, A Deal with Her Rebel Viking. Now, I should start by saying that for all of these books, chances are I have not much to say. That's the reason why I will be able to talk about like 20 books and the video will not be 3 hours long or not even 1 hour long, because for so many of them I have nothing to say, because I read romance just for the fun of it. It's like a little candy, you gulp it up and then it's over. It's like a little cake, you 2 bites and then it's over. It's not a big fancy meal that has a lot of things to talk about. It's just, and that's it. So without further ado, the books that I read. So I started August with this, A Deal with Her Rebel Viking by Michelle Stahl. Now this is the cheapest books that I've read, the cheapest book that I've read this year. It cost me 20 cents. I bought it at 5 for $1 at library sale last year. And this is my first Viking romance. I'm not going to say it's my last, but I'm going to say that they are not going to be a regular part of my reading diet, because I have a hard time considering a century or a period of time where that is very unstable, that is rife with pillage and rape and war. I have a hard time finding that period romantic. It kind of worked, but for me it was not the same ooh, I love this that I get with other historical fiction. So also it had the trope, I'm going to call that a trope, the cliche of the woman fighter, like she's such a good archer, and then the Viking says, where was it written? If the merchant army had had warriors like her, the great horde would never have won any land. Yeah, right. Like the men in the Middle Ages didn't know how to fight, but the girl did. I mean, come on. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is garbage. It's okay. So anyway, so I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite ever, but it's not that bad. Then I read a contemporary romance. I really don't read many of them. So this one I had bought last year. I had bought a little pile at about this time last year, and there's not many of them left. I think this one was the last one. So How to Romance a Runaway Bride by Teri Wilson. So our hero is the manager, CEO of a fancy hotel in New York City. It's his birthday, and he's about to cut the cake when a woman in bridal gown comes in panic. And he realizes that it's his long-lost love, in a way. When they had been teenagers, they had been best friends ever. And then when she was 16, she left without even saying goodbye. She just moved out of town, and he had never heard from her again. And they had made a pact. If by the time we are 30, we're not married, we'll marry each other. And that birthday that he was celebrating was his 30th birthday. So that's the basic of the story, and I kind of liked it. I really liked it. So in fact, I liked it so much, I decided to check what else the author did, Teri Wilson. And I learned it probably was written at the end of the book, or maybe not. Anyway, I saw somewhere that the next book in the series had won a Rita Award, which is an award for romance fiction, though it has changed name and now it's called the Vivian Award, and some rules have changed, and anyway, but it won an award. And I read the next one, and just the title is very, very subtle. As you'll see, it's subtle. The Bachelor's Baby Surprise. What's the plot? I don't know. I don't know. I think one of the reasons why category romance may be considered garbage more than other types of romance. I think the titles. I think that title is garbage. The Bachelor's Baby Surprise. What is that? So, as you may guess, the story is the cousin of the CEO of the fancy hotel. He is the CFO, so the Chief Financial Officer. He also owns shares in the hotel, so he's rich. They're rich. It's nice to be rich in New York. And the hotel has a restaurant. They want the restaurant to get stars, Michelin stars, and the critic is in town. And they decide to get a wine specialist. Now, it turns out that the wine specialist that they hire, the sommelier, well, our hero just had a one-night stand with her like a couple of weeks ago, and it was an awesome one-night stand with a lot of chemistry and all of that. And guess what? Guess what? She's pregnant. Anyway, I'm sure you wouldn't have guessed by the title. You would have never found out. It's impossible to know. Anyway, it was very good, despite the very cheesy title. Despite that, it's not even cheesy. It's just lame. I hate the title. I hate it. But despite that, it was a nice romance. Very, very nice. I have a theory about the title. I think they put it plainly, just like that, in your face, because I suppose there's a considerable number of readers of Harlequin romance who do not want to read about babies, for whom surprise pregnancies is not synonymous with happy feelings. So they just, I think it's a content warning. It's my theory. The title is a content warning. If you don't like romance with a baby in it, don't read this. It's my theory. Anyway, so I read these two, like this and this, basically back to back. I read a nonfiction in between, but as romance, I read these two back to back. And I've done that a few times this year, and every time the same thing happens. The second one is a bit disappointing, though in this case, I don't think it's disappointing. The romance itself is as satisfying in this one as it is in this one. However, the problem when reading the same romance author back to back is that all the, I'm going to say, bad habits of the author come out, or the lack of imagination of the author comes out. So in this, well, so in these two books, the heroes are basically the same guy. They are cousins. They grew up together. It's the same hotel. It's part of the same series. So okay, not particularly surprising. And they basically have the same personality, which is not much of it. They're just really, really nice. That's it. That's the personality of the hero. They're nice guys. Okay, we can live with that. Our heroine here is running away from her wedding because she has just discovered that her fiance had affairs, multiple affairs, and she had just caught her kissing the how do you call them? The wedding planner. So she decides that she cannot go ahead with it and she runs away. And she finds herself in New York City without any money, without anyone, unemployed. She is an orphan. She doesn't have any family. And in this book, we find our heroine does not have any family. Her grandfather, with whom she was living, has been placed in a care home. She doesn't have a job. She just broke up with her fiance, who had been cheating on her, but she realizes that she never really loved him. And in this book, she realizes that she never really loved him, that the only reason she was with him was because it would prevent her, it would spare her being hurt if things got wrong. And in this book, the only reason she stayed with the guy for so long is that it would spare her being hurt if things got wrong. If things went wrong. Yeah, okay. The similarities are a bit troubling. And in this book, there's a scene when at first they are bickering quite a bit, but then there's a bit of a spoiler. No, there's no spoiler. So there's a scene, they are in a museum, and there's a kiss. He takes both of her wrists, they puts them above her head, and he kisses her. And this book, they are against the wall. Forgot to say that. There's a reason I don't write romance. I don't write romance, I just read it. So they are against the wall. He takes her wrist, puts them above her head, and just kisses her. And in this book, what do you think happened? They are against the wall. He takes her wrists, he puts them above her head, and he kisses her. It's the exact same kiss. So anyway, that's the reason why I should not read back-to-back romance by the same authors, because the formula, I know a romance is a formula, but each author have their own bags of formulas and they are extremely apparent. So anyway, on their own, each of them is very good. I just don't suggest you read them back-to-back. Okay, let's move on. So that's the romance that I read in August. The others I read earlier in the year. So let's start with the ones that I don't have paper copies, either because I did not read them on paper, because I read them electronically, or because I borrowed them from the library. So Sincerely the Duke by Amelia Gray. This one is a new release, and I read that earlier this year. In the story, the Duke decides that it's time to get a bride. His mother's bickering, it's sort of poking him. You need to get married, you need to get married, you need to get married. And he's thinking, I need to get married, because he has these bouts of sickness and he's now worried for real about his succession. So he says, okay, it's time to get married. But he doesn't want to go through all the formalities this season, choosing girl, yeah. And basically his mother gives him a list, but just pick one of those. And he does, he picks one of them, and he decides to write a letter and just, I forgot the name of the girl, and I cannot read the back cover because this is just a picture. But anyway, he writes a letter to the girl saying, will you please come and meet me? I want to marry you, sincerely, the Duke. And that's where things start. And it was very enjoyable. I really liked it. So this is the type of romance where the match is made early and they sort of learn to love one another afterwards. And it works. It works. Next, How to Fall for a Scoundrel by Kate Bateman. This one is also a new release, and this one, I don't know if it's out yet. I read it on NetGalley. So that one was available for anyone. I don't know if it's still there, but I just took it and decided to read it, and I wrote a review. And I did not like it. Well, not that I did not like it. There's a bit of a mystery aspect to it. So the heroine is part of a trio of friends, and together they have decided to, I suppose they were bored, to open a private detective agency or something like that. And they are given a mission to find in this particular book, a mission to find a missing object. But but there's also a mysterious man who comes in, and so there are basically two mysteries: the missing object and the mysterious man. And the thing with mysteries within romance is that the mystery often sucks. The mystery aspect of it is very basic, very simple. There's nothing. Compared to a real mystery, it's just not good. And it takes away from the romance, because while they are busy sleuthing something, there's no romance in there, or it's sort of a side plot. So it's not my favorite type. So the mystery, intrigue, romance, it's not my favorite. And this is one example of it. So it's not quite my favorite. Darn, another one that didn't work for me, but this one, I think it's me. So this is the Notorious Lord Knightley by Lauren Heath. This one, it's funny, I did not like it, but I think it was me. I don't think it was the book. So we have two timelines in the book. The now timeline and the 10 years ago, not 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, a few years ago timeline, because this is a second chance romance. So the heroine is the illegitimate daughter of a nobleman, but of course, being illegitimate, she's been cast away, even though her father doted on her, and much more than he doted on his legitimate children. Her father wanted her to marry into nobility, basically, or into gentry at the very least, so that she could enter society in a legitimate way. And Lord Knightley fell in love with her and wanted to marry her, but on the day of the wedding, he dumped her. And now we are a few years later, because after this humiliation, our heroine decided to leave the country, and now she's back. And she has written a book, a scandalous book. And everybody's whispering, "Oh, that scandalous hero, that sounds like Lord Knightley, doesn't it?" And so we have this contemporary timeline, which is like, I would say, the main timeline of the book. And then, because it's a Regency romance, Regency or early Victorian, Regency, something like that. So we have this timeline, that is the main timeline, and then the flashbacks from earlier. And I think it's the chapters that alternate, like 5 years ago, now, 5 years ago, now, and things like that. And the reason why it didn't work for me is that in the now timeline, the two heroes together, the hero and the heroine, I cannot stand their relationship. They lie, they manipulate, I don't like it. I didn't like it. So for some reason, I didn't want to give it up. So I kept reading it. But I didn't like when the hero and heroine were in the same room together, and that's bad for romance. But I don't think it's because the book wasn't well written. I really think it was me. For some reason, I don't know. I think it was me. I don't think it's the book. So I'm not going to say this is a bad book. I think this is a very good book. I think this is a very good romance, but it just didn't work for me. And that's it for the electronic ones. And then there's a whole bunch of paper ones. Another one that I tried earlier this year was Anne Stuart. It was an Harlequin intrigue romance, and the title is The Fall of Maggie Brown. It was the first time I was reading an intrigue romance, and I did not like it. I did not like it. So this one is not so much a mystery as some sort of adventure. It is in a fictional country set somewhere between Spain and France and Andorra, so it is not the country of Andorra. And we are to understand that it's a small country. There has been a dictatorship. It's a bit of a Wild West. Basically, it's like a mafia-like country. And our heroine goes there because she needs to reach her sister, and her sister has been heard of for the last time when she was in that country. So she goes there just to pick up her sister. And she is the straight-laced one, the uptight one, the one who always does what she's supposed to do, as opposed to her sister who always does only what she wants to do. And she's the serious one. And she needs help to find her sister, so she hires some sort of cowboy, I'm going to say, but it's not a cowboy, it's in Europe, but this sort of guy wearing jeans and tough and all of that. You need me, girl, if you want to get anywhere in this country, that sort of thing. It's just not for me. I don't think it was badly written. I don't think it was poorly conceived. It's just not my thing. So yeah, that should have taken me like a couple of hours to read, and it took me 2 weeks. So a couple of weeks instead of a couple of hours. Once again, I did not want to give it up. I think the reason is, for romance, very often the pleasure comes at the end. It's a resolution. Everything's fine. So I wanted to give it a chance. Maybe it's going to get better. It's going to get better. I'm going to get my dopamine at the end, and I did not get it. So anyway, so that's that. Then, this one, Taming an Impossible Rogue by Susanne Enoch. I loved this one. I really, really loved it. There is a step back. So I really love that one. Again, the title pretty much says it all. We have a, is it a duke? I don't know. A gentleman who is a rogue. I have to admit that I don't even remember the plot of that book. I have to read it at the back. Okay, I remember nothing of the plot of that book. Oh, the Tantalus Club. Right. So there's this club that is it's a gentleman's club. However, it is rather progressive. They hire women, so it's women who are sort of being the croupier, the hosting the game tables, and it's women who are doing a whole bunch of things. But it's not necessarily a brothel. That's the thing. The women are allowed to take men up to their rooms if they want to, but they don't have to. And yeah, so our heroine ended up having to work there because she had been dumped at the altar by her fiance, and her family absolutely did not want her back. They were ashamed of her, and she had to find a way to earn a living, and she decided to go there. And oh yes, Keating Blackwood, his cousin was I'm making a mess of it. Anyway, it was good. It was very, very good, and I loved it. Okay, that's it. And I read another Susanne Enoch after that, because it's one of the cases where I read romances back to back, and the second one was not by the same author back to back, and the second one was not quite as good as the previous one. And again, I think this one is the second one in the series. It's not even the first. So I think it's really the fact that if I read one first and I get some sort of a sense of discovery, or I found something great, then for the subsequent one, which is not necessarily the second one, could be the first one in the series, could be the third one in the series, and then the next one is I don't have this same sense of discovery, so it's not quite as good. Anyway, let's continue. Georgette, Regency Buck. I love Georgette, but I have to admit that this one did not quite work for me. In her Jane Austen July recap, Anna from Anna's Books talked about the Grand Sophie, and that there was something in it that she didn't really like, and that it was that there was a lot, it appeared that there was coercion in the romance. There was a lot of the language said that the man was dominating the woman, and there was a bit, the woman was a bit of a possession, and there was a tone in the relation that she didn't like. And for the Grand Sophie, I did not care at all. I barely saw it. But in this one, it happens somewhat at the beginning when our hero and heroine first meet. Our heroine is just basically walking on the road. She has a pebble in her shoe, so she decides to remove the shoe to remove the pebble. And as she's doing that, there's I'm going to say a carriage. It's probably a different type of vehicle just going by, and the driver, well, not the driver, but the gentleman of owning this transportation device stops, and he decides to take her in the carriage whether she likes it or not, and he decides to kiss her whether she likes it or not. And when she protests that she's not that type of woman, it's not because she had a shoe off that she's that type of woman, he laughs and he enjoys very much making her angry. And I hate that. That's the thing that I hate the most, more than stolen kiss, more than the abduction, if I can call it that. It's not an abduction, but more than that, it's the fact that he laughs when she's angry. And that's insulting. And after that, it calmed down, so it went in a different direction, but I cannot say that I enjoyed it as much as other Georgette books. So that's that. Next, we have a couple of books by Julie Anne Long. So these are respectively books 5 and 6 in the Palace of Rogues series. I really like that series. It's one of my favorite romance series. In fact, it's the only romance series that I'm reading in order. I don't do that for any other one. I just do that for this one, and these were very good. I think of the two, I preferred this one, and I did not read them back to back. So I read this one, and then I read a whole bunch of other books, including romances, and then several weeks later, I read this one. So that's the way to do it, with several books in between, so that I don't see the similarities and the lack of imagination, probably, because I'm sure that if I wanted to, I could find similarities, like between one book and the next. I'm sure there would be, but because I put a lot of stuff in between, I don't notice it. So these are wonderful. I also read book number 7 in the Bridgerton series by Julia Quinn. So this is the story of Hyacinth, and I don't remember a thing about it. So it's really a case of this one. I read it, I liked it, I put it aside, and then I forgot about it. It's just, to me, it's not memorable. Doesn't mean it wasn't good, as I said. It was very good. While I read it, I enjoyed it, but it's forgettable. It's not the most striking of all the Bridgerton series. Earl on the Run by Jane Ashford. Yeah, a lot of Regency. I think all that I have left is Regency, I think. So Jane Ashford, Earl on the Run. So this one, it doesn't matter what the story is. When I read the back, like just before this video, I sort of remembered the story. Oh yeah, that's the book. But when I read it, I remember that I was thinking that this was a bit bland. It's not bad, but it's not great. There was something, I don't know, the word bland to me is really the one that describes it the best. It was fun, but nothing extraordinary. Not that I was bored when I was reading it, but just, it wouldn't take a lot for me to have been bored. Just a bit, a few, it's just a notch above boring, so bland. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left, and they are all Regency. Mary Balogh, Only Beloved. This one is a bit special. So this is it's part of a series, a Survivors Club novel. I haven't read any of the previous ones. I just picked up the book. And it's obvious that it's kind of the last one of the series because there are so many other happy couples in the book, and we know that they were part of a club and that they were all very close to one another, and then there's this man who is left alone, and that's how the book begins. So the Duke is alone, all of his friends got married, and he's feeling a bit lonely. He's 48 now, and he's thinking that it would be nice to have a companion, and he's thinking of a woman that he met at a wedding of one of his friends, and he's thinking, yeah, she would make a nice wife. So he goes to see that woman. She is a music teacher. She was part, I should say, of the gentry, but it's just that her father, when he remarried, the second wife basically let her know that she was not welcome in the house anymore. That the second wife, I'm going to be the mistress of this house, and you should try to get away. It was not said in so many words, but she had the feeling that she was not welcome anymore, so she had to find a place to go, and she found this job as a music teacher in this village. So the Duke comes to see her and basically talks to her a little bit and asks her to marry him. I would like the companionship. I'm not promising you a passionate love. We're just going to be just nice. It's just going to be a nice life. Like, we'll just chit chat, you'll play music, it's just going to be the two of us. It's just going to be nice. And she's thinking, I'd love that. The Duke is very, very nice. It's fun to be a music teacher, but I think I'd rather be a duchess. So they get married, and now they have a little something in their past. Like I said that her father remarried. It's not because he was a widower, it's because he divorced. So divorce in the time, that was awful. So she, the heroine, has not really come to terms with her parents' divorce. And the Duke, he is a widower. So his first wife died, and there are issues there. But beyond that, so that there's some things that both of them sort of kind of have to come to terms with, but it's nothing that prevents them being happy. So the book starts, they get married, they're happy. And I was thinking, okay, is this going to go anywhere? Is this just the type of romance where we enjoy the happiness of the couple? And then they're happy, and this is a big dramatic event, and then they go back to being happy. It was odd. Well, I don't know if it was odd, but to me it felt odd that the romance is a done deal at the beginning, and they're happy even though they have to deal with the parents' divorce and the having to deal with the ghost of the first wife. There's a bit of something, but nothing that prevents them being happy, really. And then there's a big dramatic event, and then they go back to being happy. Well, perhaps even happier than they were before. So anyway, I really liked it. It's the second book that I'm reading by Mary Balogh. The other one that I read was a different series. And the other one that I read was also a bit of an older heroine. She was like, I think the other one was, she was in her 50s. So it's nice to have something other than just the 18-year-old little debutante. So that was nice. The Reluctant Countess by Eloisa James. This one is the third one in a series, I think, a would-be Wallflowers novel. And I had read the fourth one last year, and this is the third one, but they happen in the same timeline. So while I was reading this, I was seeing the sort of in the background, the romance of the fourth book. And that was fun. So our heroine is French, and she has a bit of a scandalous past, not because of her, because of a situation she had been taken advantage of. And now she is in England. So her past was in France, and now she's in England. And for some reason, well, because of that past, she's carrying this that word that you know that I mean, a bit of a reputation, but nevertheless she's intelligent, she's self-assured, I guess, very beautiful, and yeah, she would make a good countess, but anyway, so it's just a traditional Regency romance, just a lot of fun. Marrying the Royal Marine by Carla Kelly. So this one is another Harlequin. So this one is another category romance from June 2010, a Regency. This one, when I read it, I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. And I read this one in January, I think. And I remember this one very well, unlike plenty of the other ones that I don't even know the names of the hero and heroines. I don't know their names either because it really doesn't matter. Something on that later. And so the names don't really matter, but I remember the story. So the story is that our heroine is going to help her sister in Portugal. Her sister is married to a doctor and army surgeon, and they are living in Portugal, and they are taking care of injured soldiers, but not just injured soldiers, because the war in the peninsula has taken a toll on the local villagers. So there's also an orphanage next door, and most of the orphans there some of them are orphans because the parents were killed, but most of them are orphans because they are the result of rape. And the children have been abandoned, and the heroine goes there to help her sister with the children. While she's on the ship to go there, there is this captain. Is he a captain? He's even more higher up in the ranking. Hugh Philip Juno. Yeah, I think. Well, the Royal Marines, Captain or Major, I forgot his title. Anyway, he goes to the peninsula because he needs to investigate something and write a report. And while they are on the ship going to Portugal, of course, the heroine gets sick, very sick, and he takes care of her. And once they get to Portugal, she disembarks and he continues his journey elsewhere. But his journey takes him back to the place where our heroine is. and our heroine is in danger. And that's the thing. In Regency romance, very often the danger is artificial, I'm going to say. It's like in this one, when I say big dramatic events happen, they are utterly unrealistic. It's just not gonna happen. But in this one, it's related to the war. So I'm not going to say it's realistic, but it almost is. It's not completely artificial. It's the type of thing that happens in a war zone. So it makes sense. So at the time, I wasn't quite sure if I liked it or not. I thought, well, it's too serious. It's too gritty. But then again, if 6 months later I remember it, it means that it was good. So this one was really, really good. Surprisingly, in a way. Another one, The Duke Not Taken by Julia London. That one is it's not Regency. This one is Victorian, but then again, fake Victorian, because this is a fake country kind of situation. This heroine is the sister of the Queen of what's the country? West Loria. So she's a princess, and we have to understand that West Loria, I don't know, it's not quite clear where that would be. I think it's not a bad idea not to give a map, because it just wouldn't make any sense. So it's somewhere, it's in the north. So is it Scotland? Is it an island somewhere between Scotland and Norway? Is it? I don't know. It's a fictional country, and she is sent to England because basically her family tells her, find a husband. You're starting to be too much trouble, because she kissed a footman. So that's very scandalous. So she's sent to England to find a possible spouse, and she finds one. So no spoiler there. I really hope you don't think it's a spoiler, because it's a romance. So yes, she finds a husband. It was enjoyable, though fake countries are not my favorites, but I liked it. It was fun. And then the last one, in fact, it was the first one. The only reason it's the last one in the pile is because it's a bigger book, so it was under the pile. So it's Lord Deverill's Secret by Amanda Grange. And I don't know, the color on the cover makes this looks very, very vintage. To me, it's sort of, I don't know, like these brown curtains. I think they were fashionable in the 1970s, but I don't think it's from the 1970s. I think it's from, it's probably just 15 years old or something. It's from 2005. It's not even 20 years old. And yet it has a very vintage feel to it. I don't know why. Anyway, so this one is set in Brighton. So this is a Regency, as you can guess by the dress of the heroine. It's a Regency romance. So our heroine goes to Brighton because she needs to learn something. Her brother has died and she wants to know the circumstances. And a man who can give her answers is in Brighton. So she wants to ask questions. And of course, sparks are flying, but she's supposed to hate him. He's supposed to be a rake. He's supposed to be a bad person. But there are sparks. Anyway, so it was fun. This one was fun. Again, so for most of these novels, as you probably guessed, I have nothing much to say except to say that they were fun. I said earlier in the video that these are like candy. I gobble them up and then I forget about them. They were consumed and digested and then forgotten. So that's what happens. Oh, I want to say something about names. Where is it? Where is it? In this one, How to Romance a Runaway Bride, which I read for Garbaugust. So I said the only thing that makes this book, the Harlequin romance, garbage, is the title because of the other, Bachelor's Baby Surprise. In this one, I think the names, the hero is named Xander. Not Alexander, just Xander with a Z. And the girl is named Allegra. They sound like medication. Like Allegra is a medication. It is an allergy medication. And Xander, that's really close to Xanax. It's they're terrible names, absolutely terrible names. So I think for that, it deserves the title of garbage, just because of the names of the characters. And I apologize if any of you viewers are named Allegra or Xander, or if you know people by these names, but I think they're terrible names. So I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a terrible name. Don't do that to your kids. Don't do that to your kids. Just give them regular names. Just is it in Denmark? I think it's in Denmark. There's actually a list. There's only so many names you can choose for your children. There's a list. You choose from that. So nobody can be named Allegra. It's not on the list. Just, you stick to the classics, which I think is not bad. I mean, let the kid have personality. Don't force them to have personality. Anyway, that's that. So, that's it. That's all the romance that I read this year, except perhaps maybe 1 or 2 or 3 that I forgot, or yeah, except 1 or 2 or 3, yeah. That's it. That's it. I have nothing else to say. That's the thing with romance. I have nothing to say. It's either good or not. I like it or not. Unless there's a major plot hole, they're fine. It's just fine. So that's it. Thank you everyone for watching. Let me know if you like romance or which is the best romance you've read this year. And I will see you in the next video. À la prochaine.